I'm Lynn McAleer with the Sunday Symposium, and it's my great pleasure to introduce Dr. Roberta Latefa Mineo. Latefa has been recording her own dreams for over 40 years, and she's worked as an American Sign Language interpreter for the past 45 years. As she immersed herself in the study of American Sign Language, she found that it enhanced her understanding of the language of dreams as a unique form of visual language. Her PhD dissertation explored the unique nature of visual language as it is manifested in both sign language and in dream language. For the last 20 years, Latefa has practiced psychotherapy with both deaf and hearing clients in a private practice setting. She offers individual and group dream work. And I am one of the lucky ones who has participated in one of Latefa's monthly dream groups for the past 4 years. And with that, I'll turn it over to you, Latefa.
Thank you, Lynn. Thank you. It's been a pleasure having you in one of my dream groups, and it's an honor to have the opportunity to speak to your extended Oakmont community. So, what are dreams? One of the defining features of dreams is that they speak in the language of metaphor. So I'm going to use a little poem to introduce this idea and invite you to bring your metaphoric mind to listening to this poem. The poem is called The Stream of Consciousness. We pitch our tent by a clear mountain stream, drink deep of pure water, the source of our dream. As we bustle and fuss with the plates and the poles, the stream of consciousness constantly rolls. We tinker with dinner, our forks and our plates. We measure our lives by minutes and dates. We attend to the details, imagine them real. These are our thoughts and the ways that we feel. Every so often, we gaze at the stream. Every so often, each night we must dream. Like the stream of consciousness, in this poem, we spend our days tinkering and fussing with daily chores and challenges. We are bombarded by external stimulation. However, at night, in the absence of this stimulation, in the silent and darkness of our inner world, it makes itself known to us in the form of dreams. When you ask what are dreams, Native Americans say that dreams were messages from the great spirits. To the early Greeks and Romans, dreams were seen as a way of understanding the messages from God. In the Bible, there are 15 examples of precognitive or prophetic dreams. After many years of working with dreams, mine and others, I feel that there are many kinds of dreams. Some seem to be messages from God or the Great Spirit, while others are prophetic. The inspiration of inventions and other extraordinary things that we'll touch upon. But for now, whoops. There we go. So for now, let's begin to work ways that we can begin to work with our dreams. This is a picture of about 45 years worth of my own personal dream journals. You can see that my cats have chosen this spot in order to do their dream work. So to begin to work with your dreams, I would suggest that you start by keeping a dream journal and a pen right beside your bed. Have them ready to write down any dreams that you have. Then if possible, as you're falling asleep, say to yourself, tonight I will remember my dreams. Perhaps lay a hand on your journals and say, tonight I will remember my dreams. Tonight I will remember my dreams. Some people remember their dreams right away with this technique. For others, it takes several nights of setting intentions before a dream comes through. Don't worry and don't give up. The more you listen to your dreams, the more they will speak to you. Throughout this talk, I'll be presenting dream material and exploring the ways that dreams can speak to us. In the words of Carl Jung, let's get back to the dream. Let's see what the dream has to say. So the first dream I'm going to tell you about is a dream that I had when I was 15 years old. The night after my very first sign language class, my mother came into my bedroom and found me signing bread in my sleep. This early memory is so foundational to my understanding of dreams. Both dreams and sign language come in pictures. Both speak through the body. embodiment is central to understanding dreams. When you sign bread, the right hand slices through the left hand. This is the bread. So I wish I could see you all right now, because I think that right about now, some of you will be going, aha, I get it. I see that this is bread. And that's a little bit of what happens when you get an aha response, when you get what a dream image means. So my plan was to give you a little bit of a taste of what it's like to see what meaning there is in a visual symbol. We experience pictures with a visceral immediacy. Pictures can be emotionally impactful in ways that words cannot. Pictures can evoke feelings that words cannot define. We all have this capacity to understand the language of pictures and metaphor. The language of dreams lies dormant in most of us. Dormant comes from the word French for dormir, which means sleep. So when we're asleep or when we're unconscious. When we begin to wake up to this sleeping capacity within us, we may find that there are many doorways of discovery waiting to be opened. Now, I was an active dreamer when I was a child, and I could often talk in my sleep. However, the bread dream was different. I was signing in my sleep. As my study of American Sign Language and dreams continued, it became very clear to me that dreams were a form of language, dream language, so to speak, or so to sign. Both dream language and ASL differ in very fundamental ways from the verbal spoken forms of language with which we communicate every day. The language of dreams and ASL are visual languages. They use icons and images and symbols and metaphor to represent our ideas. There's some evidence that indicates that verbal language is primarily a left brain phenomenon, while the visual spatial process happens in the right brain. Each side of the brain, like each of our hands, has a different function and work best in cooperation with each other. We probably wouldn't choose to go through life with the use of only one hand. Why then would we want to go through life using mostly just one side of our brains? Dreams can help us use the creative resource of our image-laden right brains. Isn't it interesting that even though we run around all day talking to each other, communicating to each other by verbal speech, yet each night we revert to our more primal language of images. Our dreams, thoughts, and messages come to us primarily in images, symbol, and metaphor. I believe that by tuning into this pictorial language of dreams, we can expand our levels of awareness of understanding ourselves, our deeper selves. So Herr Freud would have answered that dreams are the royal road to the unconscious. That would have been his response to the question, what are dreams? He said that dreams were expressed, as it were, in a pictographic script. He then gave us the charge. He said, you need to go and translate your dreams. And we do this by telling our dreams and by writing them down and sharing them with each other, basically bringing the unconscious material into consciousness. As mentioned earlier, keeping a dream journal is a good way to start working with your dreams. Once you have captured a dream or two in your own dream journal, the next step is to work through them and put them through the process of free association. So the Freudian concept of free association is that a person is trying to understand a dream and they're asked to simply say whatever comes to mind. The instructions are to keep nothing out because it sounds absurd or unrelated or embarrassing, but simply to bring up without reservation whatever comes to mind. Sometimes in the process of free association, it can take a tangential flight of fancy, wondering what, if anything, does this have to do with anything? In my experience, when this kind of quandary or puzzlement comes up, it means that something hidden or profoundly meaningful is trying to come up into our waking consciousness. So for example, there was a single woman who in her waking consciousness felt very happy with the freedom her single lifestyle afforded her. Though at times she longed for companionship, she was not naive and well aware of the complications and constrictions that could come with relationships. She was ambivalent about relationships, to say the least. So let's get back to her dream and see what her dream had to say. So she had this dream that she was rushing to gather her suitcases and her belongings in order to board a ship that was ready to set sail. Subsequently, working with her dream, she had an aha moment. when she realized that she had deep and unresolved feelings about missing the boat, specifically the relationship. Her eyes widened and she became silent as the message from her dreams hit her. She had an aha moment. So this is a picture of Eugene Gendlin, and he wrote the book on focusing-oriented psychotherapy, and he coined the term aha. So he says an aha describes an unmistakable sense of recognition, a physical shift, a relaxation, or a chuckle at the recognition when it's the right thing. So one shuffles through all their free associations, and then all of a sudden there'll come this aha moment, and then you'll know that you're on track. This is something that Gendlin said. He said, "Where are my dreams made? They're made in my body," because his focus was tuning into our body's response to our dreams. His practice of focusing is a model of inward bodily attention. It differs from the usual attention we pay to dreams. He said it begins with the body and occurs in the zone between the conscious and unconsciousness. We can see these aha moments as a bridge on the royal road to the unconscious. So let's get back to the dream and see what the dream has to say. Here's another example of how a dreamer came to an aha experience while going through her free associations. This woman dreamt that her stepmother had given her a credit card. There was a strong sense that this did not make any sense. The association carte blanche came through a chuckle. Why then did it come from her stepmother? Nonsense. Her stepmother would never have given her a credit card. I asked her to tell me a little bit about her stepmother. Well, she said, she divorced my father, and then bingo, aha. This woman had been struggling with a decision about her own marriage. From that irrelevant tangent came the clear message that her stepmother, who had gone through a divorce, was giving her carte blanche to proceed with the divorce as she had. One of my personal, most abundantly rewarding chain of dream-free associations came in response to the dream image of the kitchen window that looked out onto our backyard in my childhood. The first delightful association was to that old song, "You'll find that happiness lies right under your eyes, back in your own backyard." This song had been sung at family gatherings throughout my childhood. Then there was the lemon tree in my backyard that I loved to climb, the same one that rendered lemons for my mom's scrumptious lemon meringue pie. The memory of the lemon tree with its slippery trunk and thorny limbs brought an association of a previous, very sensate dream. I saw the pores of the lemons. I felt the vibrant yellow, the smell and mixed pungent of sweet blossom and sour fruit. The tree held a moisture on the ground and in its waxy leaves. I was enveloped with sensations of the lemon tree. And then I heard my mother's voice saying, "This is all there is." This meant that this was the meaning of life, to be deeply open and connected with all of your senses. Many more free association memories followed, these cascading memories, and they made me so happy. The dream provided a sense of gratification and seemed to be saying, "You have everything you need." Whereas the process of free association invites one to sort out and expand onward to visit the outlying memories and that come connected to a particular dream image, the process of amplification invites one to stay right with the image, to go deeper and deeper into it. Amplification is a Jungian process. Whereas Freud developed free association, the process of amplification is generally attributed to Jung. This is Marion Woodman. She's a newer contemporary Jungian. Unfortunately, she passed away a few years ago, but I had the opportunity to participate in some of her dream seminars, which were called Body, Soul, Rhythm seminars. In these seminars, we amplified our dream images by drawing and dancing and moving and sounding. During one of these exercises, we were instructed to sit with a dream image and allow that image to come into focus. The image that came to me was the kitchen window that looked out on my backyard where I had grown up. I'd been quite satisfied with all of the information I'd got from going through the process of association, particularly that old song. That seemed to be all I need, but I decided to go along with this exercise and do it with the kitchen window. As I did this, my attention was drawn to the curtain of that window. Then the instructions in the seminar were to embody that, to become this image. The backyard faded from focus as I became the white curtain that gently billowed outside and in between, inside and outside in the window. My body swayed slow, rhythmic, and timeless. This is how it was to be between worlds, inside and out. This is how it was to make the invisible, the breeze, visible. This is how it was to wait and just be, quiet, simple, humble. This was a state of mind. As I became the curtain, I became the one who was witness to everything that ever happened outside, and the one who allowed everyone inside to look out. I was the synchronous moment, the fluttering fabric of meaningful connection between inner and outer. I was the place where time was space. The constant and stationary window framed a slideshow of different times. This was where I was, where I remained constant, while the flow of events passed before my eyes. Amplification, by using images to learn about images, allows us to draw closer to the imaginal without leaving it. Interpretations, on the other hand, as happens with associations, can transplant us to an intellectual system of judgmental codes. There is a deeper layer here of backyard, the concept of the familiar, the mundane, the everyday. The song says happiness lies right under your eyes, the familiar, and in the everyday. We don't have to go to the east and go to the west. Transcendence is available in the everyday. When we follow that royal road to the unconscious, our dreams, we can come to discover many hidden treasures in the mundane. So we've talked about keeping a dream journal and doing free associations, the all-important aha moment, and dream amplifications. Next, let's explore a dream group process called If It Were My Dream. This is Montague Ullman, and he developed a series of dream experiments in the setting that he called the experiential dream group. This process would essentially go in rounds, beginning with the dreamer telling his or her dream, and then the group asking clarifying questions specific to the dream. The next round, or stage 2, is described as follows. This is a game or exercise that the group plays by making the dream their own. They will speak of it as if it were their own dream, and they will offer to each others. They don't address the dreamer, but they will offer their own projections onto the dream. The dreamer is asked to listen without actively participating. He is free to accept or reject anything that comes from the group. In this round of the game or exercise, the group respondents begin to offer their impressions by saying, if this were my dream. In the next round, stage 3, the dream is returned to the dreamer, who then is invited to respond and to share to the extent that he wishes. The group is then invited to ask open-ended, information eliciting questions to which the dreamer can respond or not. As I became more accustomed to this technique, I began to realize another advantage to it. The dream itself may have something to tell someone other than the dreamer. In indigenous cultures, dreams were shared with an understanding that the message may be valuable to the whole tribe, though I doubt if they said to one another, if this were my dream. For example, in Black Elk Speaks, Wallace Black Elk shared a dream with his elders that became a source of guidance for the whole tribe. Each dream is a beautiful and metaphorically crafted, like fairy tale or myth, whose telling may engage the imagination of the listener. In this way, they may be moved to a different place of understanding within themselves, perhaps a slightly different state of consciousness. The dream imagery is a form of symbolic representation that is trying to break forth into waking consciousness. It bubbles to the surface of awareness when a person remembers a dream. It bubbles up again when a dreamer shares a dream with others. So when we've talked about what dreams are, and we've gone through some basic exercises. One is keeping a dream journal. 2 is using free associations. 3 is the aha that lets you know you've hit upon an association that's meaningful. The practice of amplifications. And also, if you feel like sharing a dream with someone, you can use the practice of saying, if this were my dream. So at the beginning of this presentation, we touched on a bit of the ways that other cultures have seen dreams, Native Americans, Greeks and Romans, and the Bible. So let's go to one of those biblical dreams. In Genesis 41, 15-24, it relates how the pharaohs of Egypt asked Joseph's advice concerning a dream. In Pharaoh's dream, 7 fat cattle were devoured by 7 lean cattle, and 7 plump ears of corn were eaten by 7 withered ears of corn. Joseph correctly interpreted the dream as 7 years of famine. He recommended that storehouses of food be built in preparation for the dearth that was ready to come. And let's not forget The Tempest, where William Shakespeare wrote about the stuff of dreams. So in addition to messages from God and psychoanalytic interpretations, many modern inventors have attributed the inspiration for their inventions to dreams. For example, in 1845, Elias Howe dreamt that he'd been captured by a bunch of cannibals who gave him an ultimatum. He had to invent a sewing machine in 24 hours or suffer a painful death. He failed, so they stabbed him repeatedly with spears that had a hole in the tip. Howe had an aha moment, and he realized that he had to put an eye in the needle to create the lock-stitch sewing machine he'd always struggled to make. Another example is Niels Bohr saw the nucleus of the atom spinning around like planets spinning around the sun. He had a gut feeling, a felt sense, an aha that this was accurate. So he dedicated his research to proving this theory. In addition to psychoanalytic dream work, inventions, and messages from gods, there's yet another category of dreams worth exploring. This is Stanley Krippner, and he wrote the book on extraordinary dreams and how to work with them. He also was the chair of my dissertation committee, and he was a great guy and was wonderful to work with. In his book, Extraordinary Dreams and How to Work with Them, he looked at healing dreams and precognitive dreams and telepathic dreams and clairvoyant dreams, past life dreams, lucid dreams, and visitations. There are far too many topics to cover in this presentation, but let us touch briefly upon lucid dreaming. So in a fully lucid dream, you would recognize, I want to show you another picture now. Okay, here we are. This is Stephen LaBerge, and he wrote the book on lucid dreaming. He said, if you're fully lucid in a dream, you would realize that the entire dream world was your own creation. And with this awareness might come an exhilarating feeling of freedom. Nothing external, no laws of society or physics would constrain your experience. You could do anything your mind could conceive. People who attain a state of lucid dreaming and make a practice of lucid dreaming report a sense of enhanced agency or ability to do things in their waking everyday lives. So I'll get back to my dream and share a lucid dream that I had. This one, I found a large blank book. And when I turned the page of the book, I would stare initially at this blank page. And as I gazed kind of in wonder, the image would appear before my eyes. Then I became aware that my concentrated gaze on that image was what created the image, though I didn't know until the image emerged what the image would be. So another form of dreams that I'd like to touch upon briefly before we end is visitation dreams. And I'll share a visitation dream of mine that I had shortly after my father died. I dreamt that he was sitting in a metal fold-up chair in the middle of the garage. The garage and the chair were as they were in real life. As he sat in the chair, I could see the pores on his face. He seemed more real than real. I felt strongly that he had come to visit me. So I asked him, I said, how do I know that you are you and not just something I made up out of my imagination? And he responded, oh, you have plenty of pictures and memories of me. You have enough images of me to make up your own images of me. But this is my creation of me. So I'll share one more visitation dream. And this is from this book. I don't know if you can see. This is from Carl Jung. And he shares a visitation dream of his, which I've always found was very meaningful and profound. And I'll end on this note. One night, I lay awake thinking about the sudden death of a friend whose funeral had taken place the day before. I was deeply concerned. Suddenly, I felt he was in the room. It seemed to me that he stood at the foot of my bed and was asking me to go with him. I did not have the feeling of an apparition. Rather, it was an inner visual image of him, which I explained to myself as a fantasy. But in all honesty, I had to ask myself, do I have any proof this is a fantasy? Suppose it's not a fantasy. Suppose my friend is really here. And I decided he was only a fantasy. Would that be an abomination of me? Yet I had equally little proof that he stood there before me as an apparition. So I said to myself, proof is neither here nor there. Instead of explaining him away as a fantasy, I might as well just give him the benefit of the doubt for the experiment's sake. I credited him with reality. The moment I had that thought, he went to the door and beckoned me to follow him. So I was going to have to play along with him. That was something I hadn't bargained for. I had to repeat my argument to myself once more. Only then did I follow him in my imagination. He led me out of the house, into the garden, out to the road, and finally to his house. In reality, it was several hundred yards away from mine. But I went in, and then he conducted me into his study. He climbed up on a stool and showed me the second of 5 books with red bindings, which stood on the second shelf from the top. Then the vision broke. I was not acquainted with his library, and I didn't know what books he owned. Certainly, I could never have made out from below the titles of the books that he had pointed out to me on the second shelf from the top. This experience seemed to me so curious that the next morning, I went to his widow and asked her whether I could look up something on my friend's library. Sure enough, there was a stool standing under the bookcase that I had seen in my vision. And even before I came closer, I could see 5 books with red binding. I stepped up on the stool so I could be able to read the titles. They were translations of novels by Emile Zola. The title of the second volume read, The Legacy of the Dead. The content seemed to me to be of no interest. Only the title was extremely significant in connotation with this experience. So that's a thumbnail introduction to dreams, how to work with them yourself, the different kinds of dreams that there are. And I look forward to hearing your questions and speaking with you and doing a little give and take. And thank you for having me.
Oh, Latefa, that was wonderful. Thank you, Dr. Roberta Latefa Mineo. So we hope you all will join us on Sunday, November 22nd at 11 o'clock, when Latefa will be live, ready to respond to your questions. The information for accessing that live Q&A session is available on our website. It's the Oakmont Sunday Symposium Live. Thank you. Thank you again, Latefa.